Hello, leaders. I'm thrilled to be speaking with Trani today from Portland, Oregon. She is a seasoned coach and she has a lot of executive experience in healthcare, financial services, county government, just to name a few. And she has developed a really unique brand of coaching. She works with people who are going to be having difficult conversations. She works with us on how to have those hard conversations by focusing on both the inner work, which is more mindfulness based, and then the outer work, which is more communication behavior. So, Chris, I'm just thrilled that you're here today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know we recently met because Chris was a presenter at our master's residency for our coaching psychology and positive psychology students. And at that point in time, she really talked about the mindfulness component of the work that she does. And so, Chris, I'd love for you just to tell our listeners a little more about you, your background, your work with Shizen Young, as well as the Unified Mindfulness System.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mickey, for having me. It's just so fun to be here with you and talking about the things that I love talking about. So yeah, just roughly when I think of my career, it's sort of split into two or three different phases. Phase one was my healthcare career. I was a nurse, an oncology nurse, cancer nurse. So that can kind of lead you to the idea of why I got interested in hard conversations. So after 20 years in healthcare, I then transitioned to financial services. I know that sounds weird, but part of what attracted a particular financial services company to hire me was all of my work with people, conversations, creating connection. This was a company that was growing like crazy at the time and hiring people very quickly, managers who had no experience. So they needed some foundational skills in relationship building and communication. And I ended up being there for 11 years, having a wonderful run. My final role there was Vice President of Leadership and Communication Coaching. Sounds really pretty cool. It was cool. And then I decided to start my own practice about 15 years ago and take everything that I had learned from healthcare, financial services, but also my intense interest in mindfulness, which I had also been studying in one way or another for that whole time, for probably 30 years. So in my business now, as you said, I kind of take both paths, the conversational path and the mindfulness path, and try to merge them together, and it makes so much sense. And you ask about the experience with Shizen Young, who is currently the teacher that I study with. I've been studying with Shizen now for 11 years and very steeped in his system. I find his system to be very adaptable to all of us, regardless of our experience with meditation or what we've grown to believe meditation and mindfulness is. He has created a system that is so user-friendly and accessible and absolutely makes sense. It's called Unified Mindfulness, and we can talk more about the system. But part of what I love about Shizen's approach is it's very, to use our coaching language, very client-centric. It's very much based on what is the need of the person who comes to me, what's their goal, what's their situation that they're dealing with. So I don't take the approach of, hey, I'm going to teach you all this stuff about mindfulness. I start with, what is it that is going on for you that I think mindfulness might be a helpful tool? And then we build the client's program, if you will, from there.
Awesome. Well, and part of the work with Young, you guys have sort of partnered to, a bunch of you actually have partnered to develop this amazing app called Brightmind, which I'm a huge fan of, and I've told dozens of clients about already. Can you mention that just a little bit?
Absolutely. So Brightmind has been available now for a couple of years on iPhone, and any day now it's going to be coming out for Android, which I'm so happy about. And Brightmind is also based on Shizen Young's teaching, the unified mindfulness techniques, but it also exemplifies Shizen's real life practical approach to mindfulness and meditation to say, if you can devote 10 minutes a day just 10 minutes a day. We're not asking you to go to a week-long retreat. We're not asking you to go to a weekend class. If you can start devoting 10 minutes most days to using some specific technique, you will make progress. Now, obviously, the more the better. If you can do more than 10 minutes a day, that's great. But so the Brightmind app is totally designed around that principle. So all of the meditations on Brightmind, the guided meditations and mindfulness techniques, are 10 minutes or less. And that includes a little bit of an introduction and then taking you right into the technique. And if you look at some of the techniques that are available, you can immediately see that they are absolutely applicable to everyday life. So it's not mindfulness for the sake of mindfulness. It's mindfulness for the sake of me being a more effective human being in this world.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. I love the app. It's funny, when I first began learning about mindfulness, I had a friend of mine from high school who was telling me about a 30-day meditation retreat in which he was completely silent all 30 days. And honestly, it frightened me. With my big mouth, I could never be quiet for 24 hours, much less 30 full days. And so this really does bring it to everyone, and it makes it so accessible to us. So Chris, tell us a little bit more about this mindfulness and how it intersects with your leadership development and workplace coaching.
Right. Well, to add a little bit more detail to Shinzen's unified mindfulness system, the easy way that we define mindfulness is simply it's attention. It's how we pay attention. More specifically, how we pay attention to what goes on inside us and around us real time. That's the catch, is how do we start tracking what's happening to us? So if we think about mindfulness as attention training, we then can figure out a formula to train those skills like you would do any skill training. And there's really 3 skills that we hit on in unified mindfulness. One is concentration, pretty obvious, right? That we can't do anything, we can't learn anything without our ability to focus our attention. So we define concentration as the ability to place your attention where you want it and keep it there for as long as you want it. So that's concentration. The second skill we call clarity, but the way I like thinking about that in organizations and for executives, we've all had the experience with documents, contracts, and Word documents of tracking changes. So I think of clarity a little bit like tracking changes in my attention. Like, oh, wait, but it's almost like I have my concentration, but I have all those little track changes bubbles all over the place. So clarity, one benefit of clarity is it helps me notice when my attention gets pulled away from the main thing I want to concentrate on to something else. Sometimes it's something else that's relevant. Sometimes it's something else that is not relevant. So I'm able to track that better, again, real time. And then the third skill, we use a kind of a more of a meditation word for it, equanimity, which most people don't use in everyday language. But for organizations and executives, I like thinking of it as receptivity. How do we develop more of a receptive response to what's coming at us, whether we like it or not? And in any given day, we have plenty of both, right? We have experiences come to us that we say, oh, this is good. And we have experiences coming that we say, this is not good, I didn't like that. So the receptivity is around how do we find some balance to be able to not feel like we're grasping for just the positive and pushing away the things we don't want so we can respond from more of a wise place. So even as I describe those skills, I know you can start making the connection to conversations. Because I think about conversations as basically how we speak and listen to do a couple of things, to establish some sort of connection, whether it's emotional or social or professional, but also we have conversations to coordinate action. And that's been a really powerful way to think about it in an organization, of how action gets coordinated or doesn't. So how we can bring more mindfulness to our conversations to be better coordinators of action within our teams and within our businesses.
Awesome. Powerful stuff we're talking about here today. Thank you so much. In my more limited experience, mindfulness practice helps folks, as you said, have more clarity, more focus. It also helps to kind of improve the old emotional intelligence. It reduces stress. There are just so many benefits. And could you help us when, if a leader comes to you and says, Chris, I want to utilize mindfulness to become a more vibrant leader, how would you suggest they begin?
Well, again, I think going back to the basic building block of attention. What do people understand, and how are they able to, again, I'll use the word track, their attention, where their attention goes at any given moment? Because even when we think about social intelligence and emotional intelligence and all those things, if you think about it, I can't do any of those things if I don't first place my attention where it makes sense. And sometimes in conversations, I think about attention as a conversational currency. It's something we exchange in a conversation, and whether or not we want to be more understanding, more patient, more inspiring, it sort of starts with, where is my attention right now? And can I have a little bit more influence over where my attention is placed and how it's being used for the intention that I want to create in this particular conversation? So the three things that I work with leaders is to say, let's figure out ways you can start, first of all, having a clear intention of what you want to have happen in a conversation. Because sometimes we go into conversations without even knowing that. Once I know my intention, then I start tracking real time. Where is my attention at any point in time? Knowing that I'll be distracted, but doing my best to come back to the person that I'm speaking to. And then the last thing, so important and so embedded in that, is connection. How do I, once I've established my intention, once I'm better at noticing where my attention goes in this conversation, how do I also pay attention to the degree to which I feel a connection with you? Knowing that even in one short conversation, that attention connection comes together and pulls apart. And it comes together and it pulls apart. That's normal. But if I'm using mindfulness, I can notice when we're starting to disconnect, and I can do something to bring us back. And I notice we're pulling away, and I can bring us back. So those are really my three best tips in how to start being more mindful in life in general, but in particular in conversations that we're having.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much. I think we're just about out of time, but I want to thank you again for being here with us today. And I'm thrilled to know more about you and the work you're doing. It's exciting work that you're using mindfulness and communication skills and behaviors to grow awesome leaders and just to help us be better at what we do, more aware, honestly, of what we do day in and day out. So thank you so much. Have a super rest of the day.
Thanks, Mickey. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.